gods that have shortcomings, those are the most interesting ones. Even ancient Yahweh, okay, like which one do you like better? This grandchild said, I like the Greek stories better. People who suffer from addiction, prostitutes, pimps, like extremists in various ways.
Yeah, well, Plutarch's Life of Socrates, he says that he was talking to the wall, and they were like, who are you talking to? And it's just, oh, it's my daemon.
Right.
What is it about religion? What is it about gods that we seek for something better, something higher, something greater? And which gods make the most sense for the most people? Which god wins? And why is religion a useful tool in society, or is it harmful? Which side wins? That's what I want to get into today. And welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you are about to attain true gnosis. And today, Derek Lambert from MythVision is joining me in this discussion. I want to open up the chat and read people's comments and sort of just do an open engagement discussion thing and, talk to some people about their thoughts. Because I'm not trying to be biased. I'm trying to get all opinions and hear everyone out here.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I want to start with you, Derek. I want to start with you about something. I want to ask you about, because this is what I've been coming to a conclusion on lately, is that religion does have its purpose in society. Here's what I mean by that. Not that we should let these harmful ideas just sort of let loose, and we should be critical, I think. I think you and I both have more than a healthy dose of criticism. I think maybe we sometimes cross that line, which is it is what what we do. Some people would say that. Other people would say right. We don't go far enough, which is like, that's interesting. We could talk about that too. But here's what I think recently. I've been realizing that for people who lose loved ones, religion is the one thing that offers something for that. It is the one thing that offers something for death anxiety. And I think it's the one thing that atheists should probably recognize as legit. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, Neil, I would want nothing less than to be able to spend the rest of whatever forever with people I love. I mean, it doesn't sound fun that when it ends, it ends. And when you let go of someone you love and they die, you want them not to be, that's it. It's see you later, not goodbye forever. You know what I mean? Or all we have is a memory, and we want more than that. So I don't at all have anything against that. And in fact, that's the biggest thing I think about religion, that I have a sympathetic or empathetic response for those who hold to it. Because even as someone who may not draw their conclusions, I wish that it were true. I mean, I heard some atheists go, no, that's it, I've had enough.
No, I was going to say, that's an interesting take. That's not the average take for people who don't believe.
Right. I mean, dude, I'm a human, bro. Like, I am just as human as anyone who has their conclusions and they disagree with me at the end of the day. And like, there's something about the passion and the desire and the love and just the frailty of humanity that is something that I obviously wouldn't want to see end. But then there's the side of the suffering and the pain and everything that goes with that you'd love to end, which leads us to this kind of idea about which God wins. Well,
right.
For me, obviously, there's no, like, my actual conclusion is at this moment, no God. But if we're gonna play in the sandbox, which we're gonna do today, and that's like to think about which gods like sound cool. I want to play around with the idea, if there is a God, like which one makes a lot of cool sense and kind of has an interesting take on the world and how we interpret them and stuff. Let's have fun doing that. Let's take the audience super chats and like throw them at Neil. You help his channel, but also, we want to put you on a pedestal today. Let your voice be heard and see what comes out of that. But for me, it's not what I was taught that makes the most sense, or is the God that wins, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask the chat, is like, even if you don't like, I want to let people jump in with comments on why they think their God is the right one and why it makes the most sense. But also, if you don't believe in it, if you're not part of any religion, what would your ideal God be like if the one was to exist? If you were to say, you know what, if I would think that this would be legitimate if this God did this, if the world was like this, or like any, like we can just, it's like a sandbox of thought right now. Like you can
Yeah.
just think of anything. But also people in the chat who might be a heretic. Maybe you are a Christian, maybe you are a Muslim, but maybe you think something different. And I was recording a conversation last night that I'm going to be releasing to this channel in a couple days. It's pre-recorded. It was in person with a Catholic, and I'm asking him what his thoughts are and what he believes, and he's not at all in line with like tradition. He's got a lot of heretical views, and I was really, it was really like a breath of fresh air to hear him be so
Mad respect.
it
Yeah.
was just he's just being honest on what he thinks is going to happen and what he thinks is wrong about the Bible, but why he's still a Catholic. I'm like, this is okay. I wish more people would talk like this.
Yeah.
That it's like heretical because you don't want to be like that. You don't want to come off as like, oh, I don't think their church is right. I think they're wrong. But it's interesting to hear people say stuff like that. That's what I want to get from people, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think my hat goes off to that person because it's hard enough, even dealing with people within your own communities, especially certain Christian communities, where you're thrown a heretic or they throw that whole to and fro with the wind, traveling, like you're just going with every doctrine. And it's like, no, I'm really trying. I'm
Right.
really trying. Whereas you're just very comfortable to live in your Southern Baptist church. Your daddy preaches as the pastor at, so you can't leave. Imagine what your dad or mom would think of you if you left or whatever. So there's reasoning behind why they are willing to stand on those verses and throw them at you. And one thing I think is important, if I was just saying, who cares what I believe right now? If the world is the way that it is, and I was trying to pinpoint deities and like make sense of it, if I were assuming there had to be one, okay, I would start looking not for an omniscient, omnipotent deity. I know that that's the Islamic one,
Right.
because there's a problem of evil that is a very difficult issue. And then there's also divine hiddenness, all this stuff. But I'm looking at gods that have shortcomings. Those are the most interesting ones. Even ancient Yahweh, okay? Like you go back in the ancient Israelite religion, this God actually, I'm fascinated with the corporeal deity that has sex, has children, is married, it gets angry, is happy, really is just a reflection of humans. But I'm interested in that deity. I'm interested in Dionysus getting pissed off because the family is not recognizing his divinity. And so he has the Maenads go into a frenzy and even the Maenads kill, like it's like, whoa, because it's more reality. It's almost
and then even when Agape repents and says, oh, I'm sorry, you are the one, like, I repent. And he says, it's too late. Like, that's like, that's that tragedy that, you know what I mean? That
yeah. I mean, dude, let's be honest, right? We all liked Game of Thrones, or at least some of us. I would imagine most of us, right? And it's some gory, bad stuff. So if we just say, look, the problem of evil, we can't, like, it is what it is. And even the gods are affected by it. Okay, now we're getting into a different world than what we've been taught in the bubble of Christianity.
Samantha Pedigree, thank you for the super chat. I think if God existed, he would need to reverse the suffering of animals and humans alike.
That's wild. Samantha was thinking.
And no, this is the number one thing that if I was this, if I picked death anxiety as the number one thing of why religion has its purpose, the suffering of and the problem of evil and the suffering is the number one rebuttal to these are the two ideas that boom, they clash and they can't be like, it's just she's on point about this. Like, if there is a God that's in control of everything,
right, that's a problem.
That's a problem, right? You have to explain why is it this reality is so not well done. Like, it's not finely tuned. People say it's so finely tuned. We have just enough oxygen. We have just enough. It's like, yeah. Because of evolution, we do. Because we're evolved this way, right? But what was I going to say? But then there's these pagans that say we don't face that problem of evil. We have multiple gods. There's different forces at work, and due to these forces playing tug of war, there's problems that come from that, and it's not one God's fault. It's a series of events, and that's interesting. But is paganism really like? I mean, to me, when I look at the ancient religions of Greece and Rome, and I'm just an amateur, but I love reading about this stuff. It seems they're more about the rituals than they are about the belief in the faith.
Right.
It's
That
more
100%.
tradition. Yeah.
100%, brother. And there's, in reality, the actions that they take in the divine are connected. So this is why when Christians were doing what they were doing, they were called atheists. They didn't actually have an image. They didn't have an actual deity that was connected. And they believed that the forces that be were going to neglect and forsake Rome or forsake Greece or whoever, because they were neglecting the deities. And so you were inevitably going to get the suffering because of these things. So there's a lot connected to this. But one thing that I think is interesting, I interviewed Bernardo Kastrup, who's like a really brainiac philosopher. And at the end of the discussion, he pretty much just said the imperfections we see in the world, suffering, bad, all of these things we talk about, death, whatnot, are actually, in his view, philosophically, the it's like a glitch in the matrix, so to speak, or a glitch in the system. To him, he said this is a reflection of the mind behind creation. So he admits that the creator of the creation, or whatever that is also affected, and it doesn't know. It's confused. It doesn't know what to do completely. It struggles. So now you're dealing with a deity that isn't what we've been told by the typical Christian philosopher types that want to say God is omniscient and all loving and all this and that. And it's like, why is there so much bad? So if we kind of work within that model and see in the Greek world that, look, evil is evil and it's there. And how are we going to address it? Even the gods get affected by it.
Yeah.
That's the sandbox I'd rather play with. The best God, if I were just painting it, would be like ending all bad, all evil, everything good, no more death, no more, but that's kind of too easy. That doesn't make this podcast fun, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it's a cop out. It's like
It's the
we're
simplest. Yeah.
just imagining what we want to be true, but then again, isn't that what we do when we try to resolve death anxiety and fear that we lost our love? We're hoping. We're projecting our insecurities, our disbelief in something that's shocking. We're doing that. Like that's what we're doing anyway. Even if it's like jumping and grabbing onto some religion that you grew up in, even if that's the case, you're still doing it at some degree. You're still hoping for some, and which is I don't knock that.
I can't blame them. Yeah, I understand. It's not easy. Words can't just change that. There's something deeper in experience that I think can affect that,
Discovery latest sponsor, Beard Bomb. Yeah, maybe I need some of that. I was gonna trim it actually. I think I'm gonna get a little trim going. It's getting a little long, but I don't know. I haven't done this in a while. I used to have one a couple years ago, and I got rid of it, but it's back.
Yeah, Pat's rooting that beard on. I'm gonna tell you,
Yeah. Melody Joy says, my mom posted something on her Facebook today. Have you ever thought about suffering as a way for God to mature and sanctity us?
Oh
I have
gosh.
so many replies to this. That's interesting. That's another thing. This is a whole nother thing to open up. What if God is subservient to a different force, and that he's got problems and he's failing at something? And that's the reason why everything's messed up. What if it's his job to make sure everything here is perfect and he's failing? What if he's about to face judgment for that? Like, I don't know.
It is kind of, look,
ideas out there, but like,
I feel you, because
possible.
Think about what you're saying, right? And like, imagine Mormons are kind of on the money with that, right? And so God has a God, and he lived on some other planet. Our God, let's just pretend it's this one deity of this planet, and he has wives and children. He sinned in his human life on that planet, wherever that was, and then of course he had to follow and obey and worship in order to get this planet. It like it's this endless turtles all the way down kind of idea that it never ends, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think some of the Gnostics, we call them Gnostics now. Some of these early Christians had beliefs like that with the aeons,
Mm-hmm.
Sophia, and I forgot what I think it's the monad they called it. The one on top was the monad, and from the monad was all these ions, and these are all basically God. And Yel Deboeth is one of these gods. He's the Old Testament God. So that those ideas are not like new or anything. Those were floating around for a while.
Right.
That's why I loved getting into these early Christians. Like Bart Ehrman wrote about the lost Christianities. Litwa wrote found Christianities. You could go
Hmm.
to Mary Beard writes about this in her Religions of Rome. She talks about all the different a little bit about that. But it's mind blowing because we think of early Christianity as like, oh, they must have been the most closest to what Orthodox is. There must have been no disagreements at all. Everyone must have been agreeing on everything. It's like, no, they didn't even think God was the same thing. They had different names.
Some had many gods.
Yeah, they had totally. Some of them thought reincarnation was going to happen. Some of them thought, you go to heaven. Like there was a whole wide ranging ideas of Christianity early on that people don't get into. But yeah, that's what, and that's I don't know. Like I feel like that's right there when you look at that is makes it evident that nobody knows. We're all just kind of just thinking and projecting our.
Hmm.
And as philosophy grows, theology grows alongside with it. They're intertwined. So
I think there's a major
Plato
impact.
comes along and he changes the game in his dialogues, and people take from Plato and then they write their stuff, and all of a sudden you see religion start changing.
Right.
As a result of that, you start seeing more. I don't know, but that's part of it.
Science is also changing the
Yes.
philosophy, and like our natural observations of the world are impacting how we're coming to philosophical stances for the most part. I mean, there's some people who just don't even allow the natural world to impact their view. They might have a particular philosophical view, but I have noticed that is a big change in philosophy, is learning more about the natural world and scientific method and whatnot. But yeah, there's so much.
You know what's interesting about that is the idea of the Bible having to be literally true.
Hmm.
Meaning Noah literally was it made an ark and put animals on there. Adam and Eve literally lived in paradise. Those ideas were not that was not a thing until science progressed to a certain point and the Enlightenment. It was like a reaction to the Enlightenment because they're like it has to be if it's not literally true then it doesn't matter. It's just all just metaphor. Who cares? So you had this Protestants push towards well, it is literally true. And if you don't think so, then you're not a real Christian.
Are you saying that it was never understood literally?
That's what I think. I could
Yeah,
be
I
wrong.
disagree. Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I do think that when the Old Testament writers were putting together the Bible, it wasn't supposed to be taken literally. Also, with the New Testament, even some of the gospel stories were not supposed to be taken literally.
Well, okay, so now yeah. So this, okay,
Not
there's
everything.
a
There are some
difference.
things that people said, like the idea of him resurrecting people.
Well,
That's
there's a
obviously
difference in what I'm saying is I can't get into the minds of the authors, but I mean whether the Genesis author or authors that is behind Genesis 1, because Genesis 2 is separate, what they thought about what they were writing, if this is allegory or whatever genre they were writing was not literal history, maybe. How it was understood, I mean, I can't force. I really do think that, for example, the way Paul interprets these things, from one man, all the nations of the earth, etc. Like, he seems to have a belief that Adam is the first man, and so they're taking this scripture as like they really believe it's literally the truth of how mankind came to be and how this Christ figure of his is the last Adam and such. So I do think it was understood that way by some, but maybe some not. Just like in the myths of the Greek world, there were some people who really believed this stuff, and then there were others who went, "Great, great stories, like cool
right. Right.
story, dude, cool story. We're not buying it literally." And then, of course, you see
You
problems,
see that in Cicero's On the Gods, where there's the
right?
dialogue and there's like, you really think this is true? Like, you don't
Yeah,
think this is just metaphors to teach you lessons? And the other guy's like, no, it's happened. It's true. It's real.
yeah, but I'm not ruling out like what you're saying about what were the original intentions of the authors. Do we think Mark wrote a historiography that is like supposed to actually tell you what literally happened, or is he writing mythoi? Is he writing something that's literally meant to be a myth, origin myth of Christianity? And I tend to think that he's writing origin myth of Christianity rather than actual history.
Right.
It got understood eventually as history, but even Justin Martyr, bro, you're going to be helping me edit that clip. Like,
but that's like, that's how Plato portrayed Socrates. He didn't portray him historically. Plato's portraying Socrates in a way that he wants you to think Socrates is. Right. He's making Socrates talk about Platonic forms, and like, I'm not the expert in this, but like, experts tell me that's not what Socrates was talking about, and this is Plato's ideas.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, that makes a lot. Like, that's just how they wrote stories about people who they thought high of. So you get a character like Jesus who is super popular, for whatever reason, he has a following, he's charismatic, and then people want to use him as a tool to portray a message somehow, right? Isn't that not what Isn't that not what happened with Socrates?
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Neil, I feel like we should be entering into a Bacchic trance during this episode. Can we try doing that and seeing if the audio comes through clean?
Yeah.
What a subtle mine.
And by the way, can you pull that up? That while you're pulling that, I'll pull this up. You pull the music up. This is the course that I have in the list, in the description, from Dr. Dennis McDonald about mimesis. So he teaches how the Gospels are, what do you say, borrowing?
Imitating, dude.
Imitating, there you go. I don't want to say copying, borrowing. That's the right word. Imitating scenes from Greek poetry, such as Homer, such as Plato. And he lays it out for you. He shows you the evidence. He shows you how not only can we see the mimesis in the text, but we also have evidence of Byzantines practicing this very method in their education systems. So to me, I think he's very convincing. I think it's just like, I don't even know why I think it's convincing. That's all.
I love that tune, dude. Let me put it this way. Look at the title, right? With Dennis McDonald and Derek Lambert. It's 18 lectures, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, I edited this.
That's a lot of content.
This took me.
I mean, you're going to come out of this as an expert in this whole movie.
Oh, without a doubt, bro. 45.
You will have the tools if you're ever in a debate with a Christian about the Gospels are literally true. Like, you're debating a fundamentalist, someone who you want to just, you're engaging in friendly debate. Is this just, you're whatever. This is going to give you some tools, right? Like, you're going to be equipped with some stuff that's going to shock people. Like, this is good stuff right here, right?
Dude, there's 76 people watching, right? I want to look, I have not even done this on MythVision. I feel like getting them behind this paywall for just a second to let them see, and like, if they decide whatever, they could find a way to buy the course. You're helping Dennis McDonald. You're helping Neil if you purchase the course through his link. Like, it is a way to keep doing what we're doing here, educating the world. But this goes deep. I'm going to share the screen and actually play the very beginning here. I haven't even done this on MythVision, brother.
Nice.
So exclusive, bro. Hold on, let me exit that. Here we go. Share my screen. That music's where it's at, ain't it?
Yeah.
It's got that feels to it.
Brings the mood, right?
Exactly. Okay, here we are. Lecture 1. Audio is attached. Here we go. I'm going to turn off the ads from singing for a second here. Okay, and here we go.
And it was astonishing what I saw. Jesus sails the sea with a crew, that is his disciples, that are not nearly as noble as he is, like Odysseus. Like Odysseus, Jesus keeps his identity a secret so his enemies can't kill him. The Jewish authorities play the role of Penelope's suitors. They love the best seats in synagogues, and they're willing to kill in order to win the inheritance. Judas plays the role of Melanthius, Jesus' turncoat slave. Jesus has his feet anointed by a woman, like Odysseus having his feet anointed by his nurse Eurycleia, and she recognizes him from his scar. And the name Eurycleia means renowned far and wide. And it's said of this woman who anoints Jesus that wherever the gospel is proclaimed, it'll be in her memory. So these parallels were so striking that I dared not give a new lecture on it because it hadn't been digested. And so I spent another summer working through the Gospel of Mark, creating criteria that where I might be able to make a claim that there's a literary connection. And at point after point after point, it became clear that Mark was imitating not just the Odyssey, but also the Iliad and also some tragedian plays. And I translated Homer and Euripides and Plato for myself in order to compare the Greek of the Gospel of Mark with the Greek of these stories. And it was unbelievable what I was finding. I also turned to a study of Greek rhetoric and understood better how literary imitation or mimesis worked. And it was... people were taught how to write by imitating recognized models and to compare heroes in an activity called syncresis. Syncresis is simply a comparison to show that one character is similar but better than another. And of course, that's what's going on in Mark. Jesus is like Odysseus, but he's better than Odysseus. He's like Hector in his death, but he comes back to life. So that's a syncresis, and it goes on and on.
Bro, I'm going to tell you, this is a bombshell course.
I really do think it's game changer stuff. Like he's finding out a lot of amazing material that's not on everyone's radar. That's for sure.
No, and I had to stop there, bro. But that's like 7 minutes in, and there's like 30 something. That's the intro. There are 18 of those lectures. You pinned the link in the chat, so anyone who's serious
links in the description right on top, and it's also pinned on the chat. So.
I mean, he's just, it blows my freaking mind. And it's sad the way that New Testament studies has been on that. But he's connecting to that Greek world. And he asked a question in his book called Mythologizing Jesus, which is in the vein of the topic of this video of like which God wins and stuff. He asks his grandchild, and he says, now, you've heard both connections. You've heard the Jesus story. And then you heard the Greek story. You've heard the Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. You've heard Euripides' Bacchae. Which one do you like better? And his grandchild said, I like the Greek stories better. But he said, but which one would you rather imitate more? Like, because they're not as merciful. They don't show kindness as much. You know, like Dionysus is like, too late. I don't care if you say you're sorry at this point. You're dead. Whereas Jesus shows mercy. And so he's like, well, the Jesus story is a better example of how to live, but the Greek story is, you know, way better, way cooler, way more fun. And so I actually teared up reading his Mythologizing Jesus book at the end. When I finally got through seeing what he was saying and then saw that and thought about that, I was like, it brought beauty to the whole thing. So I was like, this is really cool, man. That's why we can have these talks and not like, oh, let's not even entertain the idea or even pretend and discuss different gods and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to. I'm trying to be open to this stuff, you know, as much as possible. Because if I'm going to explore it, I'm going to do critical videos on these things, it's only fair and right that I'm open to hearing other people and their, their points of view, So, so Dennis McDonald's mimesis stuff is great. He really shows how, and it's like, if you're on the side of believing in Christianity, it's not a bad thing. It's not like this is not like it's over for Christianity. Dennis McDonald figured out that they're imitating these other texts. No. All it does is say that the Christians held these texts dearly, and they wanted, and this is how they, it just means that they're passing down texts that are held high standard.
Imagine you went to make a TV show tomorrow on Netflix, and you don't model it after the best. Breaking Bad, Sons of Anarchy. I mean, I'm showing my bias here, but like, get any type of TV show, Game of Thrones, whatever, and you don't imitate, but try to be better than. You aren't replicating what works. You're an idiot business person if you don't do that. Like, you legitimately, if you're gonna be successful, you have to make the best. And you see what works the best in the known world. Yeah. So when you go to make your Netflix series, what are you going to do? Are you going to not try and work within the confines of what you know to be the best? Yes, you are. And in fact, Homer, Euripides, this is the creme de la creme of the ancient Greco-Roman world, literally.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Ted Francis, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. It's always good to see you here. I think the sun is the only thing that's close to a god. Oh, I would love to ask you more about what you think about that. What do you mean? And do you mean like the sun gives life because plants grow, and the sun is like the main thing that creates a lot of, like, rain and all this stuff is caused by the sun? Is that where you're getting at? Is like by default, like we don't. I don't know. Is that what he's trying to say? If you're in the chat still,
there's
an interesting point though.
You remember the stand-up comedian who's like, he's gonna burn you and torture you and kill you and squish you and crush you, but he loves you. Carlson or something. I can't remember his name. It's something like,
that's I forgot.
Well, he even went on record in one of his stand-ups and said, I believe, he's like obviously big against religion, but he's like, I believe in the sun. And if there is a God, it's the sun. I wake up in the morning. It's what gives. I can see it. I can feel it when I go outside. I know it's there. Almost like Akhenaten, man. Akhenaten recognized the sun disk and the sun as the light bearer that brings life and brings the warmth and all of that. So there's a sense of like, it's not ridiculous, especially when the ancients did believe that the sun was a deity. And they also thought the planets were deities, etc. But this is why we have like gods like Jupiter, which, anyway, take Zeus and continue the planetary thing. Our weekdays are named after these deities, for crying out loud. And it's all measurement of time based on the sun. So, but yeah, the sun is without it, we're done. So it's like, at least I can see it. And it's a faith that if someone actually did believe in the sun and had some esoteric value to it, I can't look at them and go, okay, it's not ridiculous, unless they made claims like, well, the sun's an actual human, and within the capsule of the sun is like you start making silly, ridiculous claims.
Look at this meme right here. Without us, you'd still be worshiping the sun. It's like Columbus teaching about Christianity. Dude, the sun is real.
Right.
It's so true, though.
You can't knock them.
Well, that's why the ancients looked up at the sun and said, what is that thing up there? It gives us warmth. It lets us see better. It makes the crops grow. It's like how can you not think there's something magic happening there?
Right.
Not knowing the process behind it,
Without a doubt. And that's like why it's not silly. Even today, as my experience, I'll go outside and I'll feel the warmth of the sun and the breeze and the cool wind. And, I'll get that euphoric, the season, the smell, the fresh air, something amazing about the human experience in that respect. And that's why I tell people, even though I don't believe, like in the belief sense that Christians have, or, most people who are theistic, like I still get those experiences I had back when I was still religious. And my point is I think it's a human thing. But anyway, that's it's I
Yeah,
love this. I love this super chat though.
and it's not, and it reminds you like the more because we when we're brought up in religion, Christianity or Judaism or whatever, Islam, we're taught that, you know, monotheism was first, and then all these pagans came along, and they're the ones that are heretics. They came later, but like really, it's the monotheism is so new
Yeah.
compared to all these ancient, completely like like, you know, like they're off in their different lands doing their different things. They have their own religions happen, and most of them, and there's a reason why, like Helios is equivalent to Ra, or equivalent to Asura in the Hindus, because they're both the sun gods, right? And what you see is, it's not that they're all like, it's not like a lot of conspiracy theorists, like there was a one world religion back in the day, and there was an
Right.
ancient society, and they had pyramids that were part. No. It's not what that's saying. What it's saying is they saw the same things in nature.
Mm-hmm.
The night sky. Oh, that's the goddess Nyx or whatever. In some cultures, it's a god, not a goddess, just the night god. But
Right.
like the same phenomena happening in nature: river gods, sun gods, wind gods, volcano gods. And so what you see is the same sort of pantheons starting sprouting up. And it is true that some of them do come from common ancestry.
Or like they have some genealogical connection to how they learned it.
Etymology rising. That's
But
true.
you're saying it's ubiquitous across the earth. And it even goes further, like the dying and rising God things. You and me both, I think that you would agree. You might disagree. That's fine. There are examples. I think there's good reason to say there's some social relationship in how narratives were created, or at least in certain cultures they've been impacted. So there's a dying and rising God maybe idea, but death is ubiquitous. So in some cases maybe they aren't connected, but the rebirth idea or cyclical agricultural, you don't need to tell me, right? It's not like I had to go learn this from you down here to see the same cycle of nature taking place,
Right.
then to draw some conclusion that, oh, we actually get reincarnated. In fact, I think that we come back, or we get rebirthed, or we go into heaven, whatever the different models might be, because we're all making a guess to try and understand the world around us.
Things happening around us.
Exactly.
When someone dies, a new person is born. I wonder if that's a cycle. And then you start thinking, you start filling in the blanks with kind of what is a hope.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what faith actually is. You're hoping for something to, and then I'm not like making fun of her. I'm just saying that that's kind of what it is. Like you're hoping that everything's going to work itself out, that you're going to see everyone again one day on the other side, you know? In fact, I just thought of something. I used to have this belief. This is a wild belief. I don't even know when I thought of this, but like I was thinking to myself, like if it's true that the atheists are right and there's no spirits and everything's natural, everything's a natural process, right?
Right.
And then I thought of myself, what is the only way that there could be like an afterlife, right? I'm thinking to myself, like, how would it play out in my mind that this could be possible? And this is what I thought of. And this is probably completely ascientific. Just hear me out. It's going to be funny, actually. I thought that when everyone dies, that's it. You go into the ground. You're no more conscious. You're not existent. You're gone. You're not experiencing darkness. You're not in the abyss. You're just not there. You're just gone. You're just not existing anymore, right? But what if after the universe goes through its heat death, you know, they call it the heat death,
Right.
when the last black hole sucks up the other, when there's nothing left in the universe's end, what if something after that happens? And then everything that was conscious somehow regains its consciousness again. Like it's not like this is crazy, right? I know. This is what I thought. I don't.
Right. No. I get it.
This is myself trying to say there still could be a way out, right?
Right.
But think about it. It's not that you die and go somewhere, like your spirit leaves your body magically and you fly up to some heaven place. It's that you die and you wait trillions of years for some natural phenomenon to come and bring you back somehow, whatever that process is. We can't even think about it, right? So it would feel like a split second went by. You would die and you would immediately wake up, and it's trillions, gazillion, jillion, infinite years later. And you didn't even notice it because you were dead the whole time.
Right.
So I thought about that. That was a thought that I used to carry around with me. It's like, you never know what's going to happen after this universe. We never know. Like, it was one of those,
Yeah.
and it's amazing how the mind will do that. Like, even when you're faced with so much that brings so much doubt into what you believe, you'll still think of something like, but it's still possible.
Right.
I'm just trying to explain, like,
the human imagination is so powerful.
It is crazy, right?
Yeah.
There's always that, like, hope of something. There's got to be something. Like, I don't know. I wonder if anyone can identify with that or relate to that. But anyways, imposter suspense. I think the Dionysian Apollonian dualism makes sense. Darkness and light. We see dualism in nature, and everything is atoms and void. It's interesting.
Yeah. I like I said earlier, Dionysus, right? It's one among many gods, of course, but it is an interesting, fun narrative to kind of go into and, like, consider. Especially, think about this, man. Imagine you're out here, you're struggling, it's hard, life's hard enough, and then you just press some grapes, and next thing you know, you're freed. Like, your perception completely changed from struggle and misery to joy. And it brings you this magical incantation through this grape that honestly makes you feel like even when shit's burning to the ground, there's hope. And it gives you a strength. I remember, I mean, look, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I have almost 8 years off of alcohol. But when I would drink, I felt I was 10 feet tall, and I felt like I was invincible. This is no joke. And they say Dionysus made old men act young and be young and feel young. So, like, of course, there's narratives to it, but alcohol goes way back in this sucker, dude. I mean, we're talking way back. So, yeah. Anyway, we're getting into, like, Carl Ruck and stuff, right? Like, and how.
Well, somebody who was big on this duality thing with Dionysus and Apollo was Nietzsche. He wrote a lot about that, because it's like, when you're reading Nietzsche and his take on the ancient Greeks, he's like thinking in this dualistic mindset between the Dionysian and Apollo. He's talking about, like, art, though. He's talking about, like, ancient Greek art, classical art, and he's, like, dividing everything up into two different categories. But you don't hear the ancient Greeks talking about that. It's like, it's kind of his own thing, I guess.
Right.
I could be wrong. Obviously, I don't know. I haven't read everything. I'm just going off what I'm seeing. Like, someone might be like, no, it's actually Plato said it this time. Sure, you're right. I don't know. I could be wrong. But, like, it doesn't seem like that was like how the Greeks thought about it. But it is interesting how Apollo is this, like, god who, he's sometimes represented by the sun. He's light. Dionysus is more like he's also identified as being a Chthonian, earthborn. He goes to the underworld, comes back up. He's kind of depicted with, like, pitch black hair. He's about, like, sex and wine, and whereas
he's a fun god.
Yeah, whereas Apollo is about, like, music, beauty, healing. Maybe there is sort of a dualism going on there. I don't know where that comes from, though. It's interesting, but yeah, that's something I'm gonna look into that. It's a good topic. Yeah, the atoms and void thing. The Greeks were Epicurus and Democritus, and those guys were theorizing this stuff. They weren't. They couldn't test this in labs. They were theorizing this stuff and being right. Brilliant people. Like, that's amazing. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Would you ever think of atoms and void if you just were sitting outside, just thinking about the universe? Like,
I'm sure that we could come to that if we're thinking critically and the best we could. But they're right about a lot of stuff, but they're also wrong about many things too.
Absolutely.
We've learned a lot since then, but
absolutely,
it's still, again, I've said this in the past, religion, these gods, I think, are our best guess at trying to understand nature. And maybe people really believed there were real entities, agents behind the natural phenomena, and eventually, once you discover actually we don't think volcano is a god, or that lightning bolt was literally a thunderclap of Zeus or whatever, then it becomes kind of like, oh, but that was anthropomorphic language, or we allegorized. Zeus came down and raped someone. Well, we know God can't rape. He doesn't even have sexual desire. So this must be an allegory. They philosophize because of the science, because of the natural world. This is why I said earlier, science is forcing philosophy to, I think it's forcing it to act a certain way, even though there's some philosophy that I've listened to and heard that almost sounds like just mental masturbation. Like they're making stuff up and just going out in unfalsifiable ways of like making observations about shit that is like, what? There's no way to prove or disprove any of that. But in the ancient world, I think what's going on is they're looking at the natural world, seeing natural phenomena, measurements, mathematics, calculating things up and going, come on, that's a story. Because they had certain concepts of God that kept getting above the natural world. They couldn't imagine the gods being corruptible like the world around them. And so it's a natural step. It's not a dumb one. It's actually smart to start putting the gods in a category that go beyond the world. And yet you get to a certain point where you're like, where are they at anymore? Anyway, that's a whole different.
I just want to show this real quick. This is obviously, I'm just looking at a drive-by doing some Wikipedia looking. This dude lived in the 5th century BCE. We're talking, centuries before Christianity. We're talking about before the Roman Empire. He's formulating atomic theory. Like that is just, I don't know. I'm amazed by that. I'm sorry. I'm just amazed by that. It really blows my mind. Like, and people are brilliant. Like the ancients were a lot more brilliant than we give them credit for.
Right.
So, I mean, like you said, he wasn't spot on about it. He still got a lot of stuff wrong. I think he said they were like marbles. Like he said the atoms are like marbles or something.
Well, everything's spherical because of Platonic.
Right.
Yeah. It's there's some good stuff though.
But it's really it's like that's someone who's way ahead of his time. Way ahead of his time, It's not just the Greeks though. There's brilliant thinkers all over the ancient world and China and all over, yeah. But anyways,
someone said that Zeus so Zeus didn't rape. So I'm speaking at different times here, way down. So I just want to make the mark. Zeus had no sexual desires, so he did those rapes on him.
Zeus was not good at all.
No, but
was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah.
Early on, and probably to the general people who were practicers of the folk religions of Greece and Rome, yes, he had sexual desires, and yes, according to the stories, did rapes and things like that. The philosophers over time started to see that category as, no, there's no way Zeus had sexual desires and actually raped. They then made an allegory of it, kind of like Athanasius
that was Plato's main argument in the Republic, was that
right.
The way Homer's depicting the gods is not good.
That's not good, and it can't be what the gods really did. So They must be allegories, not to be taken literal. And that is what the philosophers, the wise men, the ones who were trying to use their knowledge and gain access to the best they could of the world, not the common folk who are reading these or hearing these stories and thinking Zeus really did come down and sleep with that girl or whatever. But they allegorized it. And the same can be said of Revelation with Athanasius. If you go and look how Irenaeus started saying Revelation scripture, then read Athanasius and Eusebius, and you're going to go, they allegorized Revelation to be about the church and there's so much stuff they do. They change the meaning of it to suit their needs. That's all I meant. Anyway, Apollo's in the house.
Did the sun help you get clean or higher power? And we both have years clean of sobriety from our addictions, and we both relate on this. But let me hear your thoughts on this first. What did you? Because this is a really good question, Apollo. Thank you for bringing this up. Because when you're one of the things that is really heavily stressed in recovery is this higher power thing.
Yeah,
you can't avoid it. There are secular movements in recovery, but even they have like the whole 12-step thing. You can go, you might even be in like a court system, they call them drug courts, whatever, and they'll be like, "Are you doing your 12-step program?" And I don't know if they're realizing it or not. There's a God involved in that step. So you have court mandated finding of a higher power is court mandated in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, because that's obviously in court cases in America, that's the free way to do it. You can go down to an AA meeting, an NA meeting, or whatever the meeting might be, and they can sign your paper saying, "Hey, I attended that." The person who's hosting the meeting can do that. And I used to sign other people's papers when I would host a meeting.
Right.
The last time I was caught up in my addiction with heroin, and I actually went through Alcoholics Anonymous, even though I bounced back and forth. In Alcoholics Anonymous, I mean, I was dying. I went in there, I was withdrawing 5 days off heroin, shaking, cold sweats, the whole nine, and just begged, "Please help me. Someone help me." And this person raised their hand and went like this: "I know how you feel.
Wow.
You're not alone." And they just did the 5 fingers, like just touched it and let me see it. And I felt like, okay, I'm not alone. Not alone. So at first in the Alcoholics Anonymous avenue, while getting clean, I did speak to a higher power, but it wasn't Jesus anymore. Like at this point, I still had that tradition, that baggage, but I was like, I need your help. And so I called it a higher power. I believed it was something bigger and greater than me. It was like a mental ascension to something that I was communicating with. And eventually I then realized it was me, but that's where it went. So initially getting clean, I was still praying and asking this thing, this power, almost like if you read ancient philosophers talk about their daemons, like they have conversations with themselves, but it's almost like the guardian angel of themselves or something.
Yeah, well, Plutarch's Life of Socrates, he says that he was talking to the wall, and they were like, who are you talking to? It's just, it's my daemon.
Right. And so like for me, it was like this, I'm actually talking eventually that higher power was myself. So I then realized it was me and my loved ones around me, my mother, my brother, my sister, my wife, my children. It was them that were my real guardian angels that helped guide me through. But I had to get out of being so selfish in my mind and try to change that behavior. But at first, you're in a hole. Like there's nothing but dirt around you. You got to look up in some way in your mind. You feel like I got to get out of this hole. And so we used to use acronyms, especially when I was getting out of Christianity, still going to the meetings. And I would say, look, man, you probably need to have God in your life, GOD. And I'd always point to my fingers, group of drunks. You need to get around other GOD, group of drunks, and connect to the other human.
Yeah, I remember hearing that one before. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, man, GOD. And we anyway, it was like we would come up with ways, and like people go, you can make the doorknob your damn higher power. And if it, and
imagine if somebody in recovery had Dionysus as their higher power.
That'd be cool.
The god of alcohol.
Yeah, like I love you, but I can't touch you.
Right, like that. I wonder if that would work or not. They're probably either. I don't know. That's interesting.
It's kind of a weird question, honestly. Your God is the grape itself, is the blood within the grape, which is the wine. And yeah, man, I don't know about all that. Or Osiris was grain. I mean, so like you have this fertility, but it's also kind of, where does vodka come from other than grain? And so what are we dealing with here? It's another thing. And that's why they had the same kind of ritualistic as Dionysus and Jesus. I think there's a definite connection there. But yeah, they would drink wine, they would drink beer in Egypt, and they would drink cornbread to eat the flesh or the body of the god. Really interesting stuff.
Yeah. I've always had the issue with the whole higher power thing when I was starting off in the whole program, and eventually, well, actually, I shouldn't say eventually, because eventually I ended up going to prison, and then I became a Christian. So that was the end of that problem. But yeah, I didn't before going upstate. I was in and out of programs, And I would always struggle with that whole higher power. Like, this is crazy. They're forcing us to, like, I always thought about that. But then I had some psychedelic experiences as well. So I don't know. I can't really describe my thoughts on that, other than eventually I just became a Christian. And then eventually was a Gnostic, and then eventually was agnostic, and then eventually pantheist, and went through all these different phases in my belief system. So
Yeah.
I've been in everywhere. I've explored it all. You know what I mean? I've just tried it all out. So
Might as well while you're at it.
might as well.
It's a buffet. I mean,
Yeah. Thank you for the super chat. Constellation Pegasus, talk tedious this morning. Broke the story of Baltimore Catholics molesting hundreds of kids. Haven't looked into it yet. Looks like it's pretty bad. I'm trying to be as I don't know, how do you go about this? But like, how often do we hear these stories?
A lot.
Why?
It's so
There's like
prevalent.
something weird about this, that even in my local news here in Buffalo, every couple months you'll turn on the local news and it'll be
Another couple hundred kids.
A priest in this area from the parish of 422, he has been relocated to the Vatican, and they're saying he's going to face trial for that. Whoa, another one. And this is local news that you don't even know about. Yeah. So how many local news is that I don't know about that this is happening in? He's talking about happening in Baltimore. Why is it so much?
I mean, look, I can't speak to, I'm no psychologist. I don't know the behavioral side of this and why, but if you created a cult that, let's just play around hypothetically. We've been playing around this whole thing about which God, right? So let's play around hypothetically. Imagine you and me started a cult, but in this cult, it was our religious duty to murder someone twice a year. Okay. And let's just say there's those kids, as we've seen in serial killer movies on Netflix and stuff, that like torture animals eventually actually become serial killers and stuff later on in life. They saw that this cult matched the behavior in which they were interested in, or the opportunity to go for that. I'll give you another example. Let's just say a man is so interested in having more than one wife. He can become FLDS and join the Mormon church, or become a Muslim and marry 4 women. And he's the head and he can do what he wants as long as he treats them equally, but he's got 4 chicks at his disposal, right? So I'm saying that this avenue of not marrying in the Catholic Church that they've had for so long, not allowed to, there's kind of that suppression, or it could be that, or it could be the combination of, hey, there's access to kids. We have a way to, get away with the things that we're interested in doing. I kind of wonder if it might be both. I don't know the behavioral side so much of the psychology behind people who do that, and pedophilia and stuff, but it wouldn't shock me that if they're stuck and they have no other access but little boys and they're trying to fight this struggle.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've heard someone say before that it's like the type of person who is more likely to like become drop out of like the idea of ever being married and like devoting their life as a priest to a church. That type of person tends to be having issues in their sexuality, I guess. I don't know. Right. Which I don't know if that's true or not, but like
it might be. That's what I'm saying.
It might explain some of these numbers. That's all I'm saying.
That's if it's that prevalent, and I mean it's pretty freaking prevalent. I mean it's like I'm no more shocked about it anymore. Like I hear about it and it's like, oh, yep, well, that's
anyone
typical.
Count anymore? Is that count? We lost count a long time ago. That's all.
Right.
But anyways, thank you for that. Wow. Messed Up Talk Radio. Thank you for that super chat.
Thank you, Constellation.
Where does Fanny's rank for you in the battle, Neil? Fanny's, I don't know if you know about Fanny's, Derek. Fanny's is
I don't know much about Fanny's.
Fanny's is the highest in Hesiod. Fanny's is like Fanny's is the one that comes out of the abyss as uncreated. Is the first he's shouldn't say he, it's a hermaphroditic god. It's they came out of the abyss and creates Nyx and Eros. And like Fanny's is like the original all. That makes sense. Yeah, there we go. Let's get some Wikipedia stuff. What does it say?
God of creation.
Yeah.
Fanny's or protagonist.
Read the Orphic cosmogony one because that's probably has a good source.
Okay.
Well,
Phanes
real
is often
quick, just highlight over where it says that 3. I just want to see what it says. The
Well,
number
what?
3. The number 3 next to dualism.
I don't see it.
Next to dualism. Go up. Go up. No. The second paragraph. Next.
You tell me.
Last word of
Here?
the Orphic cosmogony. Go down.
Okay.
And then the last word where it says dualism.
Okay.
Highlight that number 3. Just put your cursor over it. Russell. Okay, so this is from Jeffrey Burton Russell, The Devil. So I'm just trying to find the source. So this is Cornell University Press. Okay, so we have a good source. All right, read that paragraph. I just want to make sure it's a good source. That's all.
In Orphic cosmogony, Phanes is often equated with Eros or Mithras and has been depicted as a deity emerging from a cosmic egg entwined with a serpent. He had a helmet and had broad golden wings. The Orphic cosmogony is quite unlike the creation sagas offered by Homer and Hesiod. Scholars have suggested that Orphism is un-Greek, even Asiatic in conception because of its inherent dualism.
Wow, that's interesting. Kronos is said to have created the silver egg of the universe, out of which the firstborn deity Phanes or Phanes Dionysus. Isn't this some crazy, this is some wild stuff right here. Yeah. I love it. I love reading about this stuff, man.
That is wild, dude.
Lord Priapus. Anyways, thank you for that contribution to the conversation. It's Phanes is interesting. Where does Phanes rank? Honestly, the highest. Why not? I mean, what are we comparing? We're comparing a god from the Old Testament. We're comparing Allah from the Quran. What else are we comparing? The Buddha, the Brahma. And it's like, okay, yeah, they're all claiming to be this creator god. They're all up there. What's wrong with Phanes? Why can't Phanes be in the conversation? Right. They believed it. People believed it. So I'm gonna say, yeah, Phanes is up there. Phanes is high up there. Good point. Thank you for that. Anyways, let's see what else we got. Trying to see if there's any more comments.
There's a super chat I think you missed.
The ancients are more brilliant than we are now. Maybe.
I think we do dumb down people and we shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I'm with that comment. I think I can't say than all. But I'd say like today, there's some people who are just not bright, and then there's some people who are brilliant. And in the ancient world is the same way, I would say.
Yeah. What are these things called? Particles, disturbances in fields that propagate as waves. Are they waves? So far, you're asking the wrong person. Well, I'll keep reading it. You should get Mr. Adair on one day and look into it. Yeah, he might know. Heisenberg uncertainty principle, really.
Do you want to know what came to mind immediately after that? I literally am watching Breaking Bad right now, and he mentions Heisenberg. And I'm like, Walter White.
Yeah, this is something I have no idea.
Yeah, look, Constellation, just so everybody knows, we've seen Constellation in the chat for a while. It's big into the wanting to get the science, right? And I think that's because it's been so ignored and neglected from the Jehovah's Witnesses that I think it's made an impression on Constellation. So I don't blame one bit, but I honestly don't know the answer to this.
Yeah. Disturbances in fields that propagate as waves. I don't even know what that means. I know it has something to do with quantum physics, probably, or some sort of, at the atomic level, what's going on in reality. I think that's what you're getting at. But you're asking.
Are they waves?
Particles? No idea. I couldn't even give an answer of what I thought of if you ask me something about the ancient Greeks or something about Orphism, I can at least give you my opinion, even if it's not from a scholarly, from a position of authority. I can just guess. I can give you an answer that's something. But this, I don't know nothing about this.
And now I could call some people.
Yeah,
in fact, I could probably hit up Lawrence Krauss or Shermer might know, but I know Lawrence Krauss is a theoretical physicist. He should know. And I imagine Adair is aware. In fact, do I need to, dude? Do you dare me?
Smart,
do you dare me to call Adair?
Call him right now. See if he answers. Let's see if we can get a live response. Put him on the spot.
I'm going to put him on the spot. We're doing this, everybody. We're doing this together. Let's see what happens here.
Hello.
Hey, Dr. Adair, I'm on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and they asked me if I wanted to call a friend. So I used my call a friend option. Do you have a spare 30 seconds?
Yes, I do.
Here's the question. And it's the $1 million question, in fact. So this is all up to you. I'll have to split it with you if we win. What?
Okay, hard pressure. Okay, let's go.
Here we go. What are these things called? Particles? Disturbances in fields that propagate as waves. Are they waves? And then on, hold on, Heisenberg uncertainty principle? Really? Question mark.
All right, so in quantum field theory, you can have oscillations in there that don't necessarily become particles. The oscillation basically has to become large enough and energetic enough to actually then substantiate itself as a particle. So if you look at, like, say, the rest mass energy of an electron, you have to have at least that much energy for an electron to pop out. And actually even more than that, because in the process you get an electron and a positron, the antimatter form. So you need twice that much, but those are details. So oscillations in the quantum field, yes. Particle, not necessary. You said something about the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, and I think the question was, really?
Yeah.
What was the question?
Yeah, it's just it was you should get Dr. Adair on one day and look into it. Heisenberg uncertainty principle? Question mark? Really?
Oh,
question mark?
yeah.
Question mark?
That's totally mainstream modern physics.
Totally mainstream.
And, it's and the basic things about the uncertainty principle is that the combination of trying to know the position and momentum of a particle, how fast it's moving and where it's located, the more you try to accurately measure one, the more uncertain you become about the other. This is an effect due to the due to quantum mechanics.
Well, did we win? Did we win?
So you mean to tell me that those guys who talk about?
Oh, let me fix the audio so you can actually hear. Ready? All right, go ahead.
So you mean to tell me that those people who made that documentary about Saturn and Jupiter?
Sorry, Neil.
You can't hear me?
Okay, turning up the volume. Go ahead.
So you mean to tell me that those guys who put up that documentary about Saturn and Jupiter being in the sky and everyone can see it, electromagnetic energy, that's false then?
That is worse than false. That is, at best, a hallucination by someone who just wants old ancient text to fit their ayahuasca trips. Because
what is that called again? What's that theory called again?
What's the theory called again?
Oh, electric universe.
Electric universe, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like you're getting $500,000 coming soon for that correct answer, Dr. Adair.
All right, I am going to tell the wife, and we are going on all the vacations.
Hey, we got to connect again. We got to do a show soon.
Absolutely. There are things coming around out of this world that we need to talk about.
Literally out of this world. Aliens, correct?
Exactly, yes.
I can't wait. Okay, well, man, thank you so much for taking my call. And you are live on Gnostic Informant right now, just so you know.
All right. And shout out to Neil. You're doing good stuff here. Waiting for the next episodes.
Nice.
Thank you so much, brother.
Take care.
Have a good one. Bye.
Wow. What a smart guy.
Heck yeah, he is.
You know, it's funny that he brought up I brought it up actually, but I just wanted, because when I left religion, one of the last stands for me was that electric universe theory, because it was so appealing to someone like me, because it takes mythology and it tries to say all that stuff, Saturn deposing Jupiter or Jupiter deposing Saturn, that was an event that happened in the sky. The ancients saw it. It literally happened. And it was like, this is electromagnetic waves in the sky causing certain symbols to appear. And the ancients wrote it down on rock art. And I remember being so amazed by this stuff. And then I met Aaron Adair. And then I met what's the other guy's name? He does a channel, he debunks it. I met him too. A few people I met, and they explain how this is just so fringe. It's the most like this
You're
is
talking about the Professor Dave.
Professor Dave, yeah.
Yeah.
But this thing, the reason why they got me is because these people actually did have PhDs in certain scientific fields,
Right.
but they were just going way over their heads. I mean, it was like Bible scholars trying to be classicist. It was like they were going in other fields that weren't theirs and just making shit up. You know what I mean? So
or Bible scholars becoming
or
Egyptologists and then acting
anything.
like they know the Bible so well.
Yeah, and I just use those
or
as
whatever.
examples. I'm not picking on Bible scholars. I'm just any certain field jumping over to another field, and they were doing all these like huge theories on all these different. They were just like way out of their range.
Yeah,
and so
that sounds about right.
They pointed that out to me. I was like, yeah, okay, because there was like when someone has a PhD, they can really make you think something's true and it's not.
Right, I agree.
You know.
That's true.
Usual. Thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate you very, very much. Very, very much.
Thank you.
Lucifer says, this is awesome.
Yeah, Dr. Adair really is. I met him in person, and we actually went to the museum over there in Boston, and he is such a cool, down-to-earth guy. Like, really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great. Dr. Cheryl, thanks for the comment. How do the gods of the Greco-Roman world compare to the gods of other cultures, Egyptian gods and Hindu gods?
That'd be
just
now I gotta call Karakuni.
Yeah. So as an amateur, as someone who's not gonna be, I could be wrong, but if I had to if you forced me to guess, I would say that there are etymologies that do these so the Hindu gods, for example, you do have this deist Ptah character, you have Jupiter, and their etymologies are from a common ancestor. I've been told this by multiple different scholars. You also have in the Egyptian religion the pantheons, and a lot of the Greek writers like Diodorus, Plutarch, and on Isis and Osiris really talks about this. Comment on how the Greeks are actually taking Egyptian gods and borrowing a lot of that stuff into their stories. So you have a lot of so my answer to this question is there's tons of overlap.
Yeah. Also,
they're different. They're not all exactly the same. In the Egyptian world, there's different things than the Greek world, and in the Hindu world, and there's they're all different. Of course, they're different, but there's also a lot of overlap, and I love that stuff. I love reading about that overlap.
I love finding out Serapis, Dionysus, and those are Egyptian in origin. At least it seems that they co-opted.
Yeah,
but it would be cool if we could have like a panel. If we had like Eastern PhD coming at this not from necessarily like a religious background, but like they themselves are just scholars in the field, and they're coming from Hindu. The Vedic or Hindu traditions and the gods as far back as you can go, Egyptian with like Karakuni or whoever might be that can be the spokesperson, and then have the Greek and Roman pantheon, and then literally have them like compare the narratives and discuss like the religious practices associated and whatnot, and then everyone listening going, what the, that would be a cool conversation to see.
Absolutely. That would be awesome. Yeah. Let's see. So I think that's it for super chats. I wanted to ask you something about something we were talking about earlier. Can't remember what it was. Oh yeah. So what do you think people who are critical, atheists, for example, who, and there's someone in the comments had a really good point. I can't remember where it was about the how some of these ideas can be harmful in society.
Of course,
they can be degrading to people who are of certain backgrounds or certain genders or certain races. We acknowledge that, and we're trying to combat that stuff. But how do you balance it out with the idea of people who just want to have some sort of comfort in knowing that they and their family are going to be taken care of? And how do you walk that line of being critical but also not being like rude to people who just believe in something?
Yeah. It's so I have Christians who legitimately are believers who financially even are on the Patreon who support me, and they say, man, you're doing God's work. I said this like the past couple of days. I'm not even kidding you. They message me this stuff. Keep it up. And they're not conservative in the sense that, and when I use that term, I'm not speaking politically necessarily. I'm saying their religious dogma is not strict. It is not literalist. It is not fundamentalist. That's what I mean when I use the term conservative in this context. But when they're like, hey, yeah, I do believe Jesus, but like, hey, I just, that's my own faith, and it gives me purpose and meaning, and it helps guide me, and it's an instruction for me on how I love my family, blah, blah, blah. I have I don't even go out of my way to like, my target when I'm being critical isn't those people. They can learn from what I'm saying, accept it, but since they're obviously not dogmatist, what I'm saying doesn't even offend them. Because they're like, well, I disagree at the end of the day with that. Cool. And it doesn't hurt their feelings. But if you're a dogmatist and you're taking this to the bank, I'll give you an example of a harmful thing that has come up and why I do what I do. And you do it too, but you also do things I don't do in areas exploring things that I don't do with MythVision. I was watching a YouTube video by Soft White Underbelly. You ever heard of them?
Yes.
Massive YouTube channel. The guy like interviews people who suffer from addiction, prostitutes, pimps, like extremists in various ways. And one of them was a Ku Klux Klan member with a purple robe on. And he had the pointed hat. He wore the outfit during the interview. And he's sitting there. I'm not kidding you. This guy's full blown, right? One of the interesting things was he was asked, are you a racist? And he said, no. You think I'm a bigot? No. I'm just proud of my own race. Now, get this. A Ku Klux Klan member will not admit he's racist. So that tells you when people say they're not racist.
Yeah,
you cannot take their word for it. Yeah, you have to really be
about behavior. It's not about like, oh, I said it, so it's true. It's like your behavior speaks it.
Right. Yeah. Well, it gets deeper because he tells about what happened and how he became one. He was at Walmart somewhere in the South. And he was shopping, and some other country guy just walked up to another white guy, hanging out, just talking. Hey, brother, would you like to come out to our barbecue? We'd love to invite you here. And he hands him a pamphlet. Just walks up to this white guy, hands him a pamphlet, an invitation to come to their get-together, their family get-together. And they were having church service. He decided to go. He went. They were having church service, and the pastor was preaching at this Ku Klux Klan rally on the weekend, preaching from the Hebrew Bible about the seed and how you are supposed to be with your own kind. He was using the Bible to show that Israelites do not need to intermix and they do not to go after foreign gods. And he said, because he was already a Christian and he was already someone who had gone to church, and he said, I have never in my life ever heard a pastor ever preach from this place in Scripture. And it was so compelling based on what I was seeing in the text, because I was like, this is not in our Bible, is it? He found it in the Bible, and it made him so convinced, as already a believer in the Word of God, that he ended up going, why are we not being told the truth about the Bible? This is taught in our Bibles, and Christians are ignoring the context, yada, yada, yada. So he became a Ku Klux Klan member, realizing that the white man and the white race needs to be with it. Like, there's all sorts of problems with that alone, but you see what I'm trying to get at. Like, it can be used and weaponized, and it is.
It is, yeah.
And so what we're doing is just
think about the curse of Ham. That's the stuff they use, how people use that shit.
Yep.
Like, that's unforgivable. Like, sorry, like that is just not you. That's not cool, man.
Yeah, so that's I guess
the Bible says it, so we have to follow it. So
yeah,
no, you want to follow it. That's you want that to be that's how you interpret that shit. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
But
yeah, I guess the conviction of the message really caught his attention, and somehow he was convinced and became literally the dude moved up in the ranks because he was wearing a purple robe on the dang video, and he was explaining. I think he had like a can of dip. He put tobacco in his lip and all, I think, during the interview. So anyway, it was just wild, bro, to watch. But yeah,
where does the KKK come from?
It's I don't know the origin history, but I do know that it has its roots in the South. That's for sure. So
this is history.com.
Look it up.
I think this is something we should just look at real quick. This is interesting.
Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, you see it?
Yep.
Okay. Founded in 1865, the KKK extended into almost every southern state by 1870.
Yeah.
It became a vehicle for white southern resistance to Republican parties.
At that time,
Yeah, that back then the Republican Party was up in the north.
right.
There was like a slow change over time. Anyways, Reconstruction era policies aimed at establishing political and economic equality for Black Americans. Its members waged an underground campaign of intimidation and violence directed at white and Black Republican leaders. Though Congress passed legislation designed to curb Klan terrorism, the organization saw its primary goal, reestablishment of white supremacy, fulfilled the Democratic victories in the state legislature across the South.
Mm-hmm.
So 1865, it's smack dab in the middle of the Civil War.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's mind blowing, dude. That looks like Hitler right there. Dude, that's just a wild. Our history is dark, dude. I'm sorry, it's dark.
Pretty rough, bro.
It's very dark. But anyways, Yellow Psych, thank you for the super chat. Too many coincidences. The spirit world is real. I feel sorry for people who haven't experienced it. Ooh.
Thank you for that super chat. I really appreciate it. The way I would answer this is I've experienced a lot of stuff. And I thought that was the spirit world.
Me too.
Yeah. And now with my position that I hold and not denying those experiences are real, but they don't draw me to saying this is evidence of the spiritual world. But that's after when I was getting close to dying from heroin, I started to look into the brain and know, why am I suffering with addiction? How come I can't beat this? What's wrong with me? Because I thought I was insane. And it was more of natural sciences of exploring the brain, exploring the phenomena of us, finding out more about our evolution, all of that, and actually realizing evolution's true, because I didn't believe that was true either at the time. All of that started leading me down the path of like, spiritual? What is that? And what does it mean by spirit? Is the spirit world is real? If what we mean is our experiences we feel are real experiences, and that I'm saying is the spirit world, then I guess it'd be synonymous with saying my experiences were real, therefore I call that spiritual. But if you're saying there's another dimension or realm and that somehow is proven through my experiences, I'd be very careful, because I've seen things even when I was on ecstasy or other substances and stuff, or even felt like something was going on even when I wasn't on substances, things like that, and thought, this is evidence of the spiritual. But at this point now, I realized, okay, I was hallucinating on the substances I was taking. And in other situations, the brain is a powerful tool.
Yeah,
So,
DMT is intense, dude. And if anyone who's experienced that will say, you can understand why someone would conclude that this is some sort of spiritual world. However, remember, it's only because you took DMT that you got there. There is that aspect.
You don't have to even take a substance though to hallucinate and to experience.
Some people do. Yeah.
Right.
Endogenous.
But you talking about DMT. I have never done it. I have done other things. I have done mushrooms and things like that. I've done things, but I've always been terrified listening to people tell their story about what happened when they did DMT. It freaks me the hell out.
So the Greeks, when they took this Kaikian stuff, I'm not saying this is DMT, but
right,
the experience that they describe is very similar in the sense that it's life changing, and people after they experience it, this is a common response is they no longer fear death. Right. So they would go and they would get initiated, and then they would experience something that changed them forever, and they were saved. It was salvation.
Right.
Literally, they were saved.
Yeah.
And so, and there's actually a story of a guy who was sent by the king of India to bring presents to Augustus. I think it's in like 12 AD or something, 12 BC or something, whatever, who knows. And so they sent all these delegates out there. Some of them didn't even make it all the way there. Some of them died. A few of them make it there. They bring them tigers and vipers and myrrh and frankincense and all these golds and stuff. And the one dude he knew how famous the Eleusinian mysteries were. They knew about it in India. That's how famous Demeter and Bacchus was. they're like, I want to get initiated in the Eleusis mysteries. And it was off season. You only go there. It was only 2 times a year where you can get initiated. And it was out of season. But Augustus is Augustus. And he said, all right, I'll make it happen. He's already been initiated, but I'll do it again. So they went to Athens, and they went to the priest, and they went to Eleusinian. They opened it up. This guy got initiated. According to Nicholas of Damascus, who's the main source on this, he immediately jumped into a fire and killed himself after. His time on earth was done. He was complete. That's what he saw. Whatever happened, who knows what happened.
Right.
But the experience that he had was so life-changing that he killed himself. He jumped into a fire, killed himself. It's crazy. So I don't know.
Wow.
There are people who I can that. And that's I was just touching on what else like you're saying that people experience. It's experiencing it. It's not. You can't convince somebody, and that's a lot of the stuff that people talk about when they're like, why do you believe in this religion? Well, I had an experience.
Yeah,
that's it. That's what it comes down to.
Well, that's how I have a hard time with the people who say, "Oh, I've never had an experience, but I believe it," and I'm like, why? You read an ancient book? Come on, man. At least I have respect. I really have a lot more respect for the person who's like, I cannot explain my experiences, even if I think they're appropriating that experience to something that isn't necessarily the driving force of that experience. But I respect it more than I read an ancient book. And if you're stupid, if you're that dumb, you can't just read the Gospels and Mark and Matthew and Luke and Paul's letters and know it's true, then something's wrong with you. And it's like, it's almost like a slap of disrespect for how dumb people are when an apologist is making the assumption that anyone who reads it knows it's true. You just got to read it. And it's like, you mean to tell me you don't have a subjective experience of some sort that somehow is confirming this to you? And if you're not having that, why do you believe it? It makes no sense to me. I can't relate to that narrative, but it really makes me question, right? But yeah. And another thing, imagine, Neil, if I said, hey, can you explain your experience of golden cap mushrooms? Explain what that felt like and what that was like, or explain what rolling on ecstasy feels like. I'll try to use some adjectives to describe this thing, but like I will only insufficiently try, and you will never be able to know what it's like until you have experienced it. And so that is the reality. But those experiences that I had when I was in the faith, they're real experiences, but I attribute them to something different today, more in a natural way, rather than a different dimension or realm or something like that. So anyway.
Yeah. So I just wanted to, because I know someone in the chat's going to want it. I always get this. What person were you talking about? His name was Zarmarsis. I think it is. Hold on a second. Let me find it.
By the way, little plug, Immortality Key by Brian Medadescu. He wrote on this and goes into, there's an audiobook of it as well, but he goes into the psychedelics in the ancient world and how their fear of death went away after they would take these initiation substances or whatever the substance was during the time. No more fear of death.
Oh, I found it. Okay, cool. I get to show people what I'm talking about so they don't think I'm making shit up. I always try to at least show people what I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just so they're not like, what the hell kind of a story are you making up? So here it is right here. This guy's name is Zarmano Chagas. Hope I said that right. So he's Strabo, Cassius Dio, and Nicholas Damascus. We have 3 sources for this story. So it's well cited. Pandian mission. Nicholas Damascus describes an embassy sent by the Indian king Porus to Caesar Augustus. The embassy traveled with a diplomatic leader on parchment in Greek. One of its members, Sermana, burned himself alive in Athens to demonstrate his faith. Nicholas Damascus met the embassy at Antioch. The monk's self-immolation made a sensation was quoted by Strabo. His tomb indicated he came from Barizaga, which is now Baruch, city of Gujarat, near the north bank of Narmada. And it says that, this is what Strabo says. To these accounts may be added Nicholas Damascus. The writer states that at Antioch near Daphne, he met with ambassadors from the Indians who were sent to Augustus. It appeared from the letter several persons were mentioned. Only 3 survived. He says the rest had died chiefly in consequence of the length of the journey. The letter was written in Greek upon a skin. The import was that Porus was the writer, that although he was sovereign of 600 kings, yet that he highly esteemed the friendship of Caesar, that he was willing to allow him a passage through his country in whatever part he pleased, and to assist him in any undertaking that was just. 8 naked servants with girdles around their waist and fragrant perfumes presented the gifts which were brought. These presents were a Hermes, born without arms, whom I have seen, large snakes, a serpent 10 cubits high, a river tortoise 3 cubits high. They were accompanied by then a person, it said, who burnt himself to death at Athens. This is the practice with the persons in distress who seek escape from existing calamities, and with others prosperous circumstances, as was the case with this man.
Yeah, for everything hitherto
Yeah.
had succeeded with him. So you're right. He had fulfilled everything, and then he's like, I'm done. Done with this crap. Peace out, guys. I'm going to go burn myself. I'll be right back.
Oh, this is it right here. Based on a different way, Strabo renders. Modern scholars attempted to interpret Strabo's vision of a combination of 2 words. Interpretation, the Eleusinian mysteries, whereas, where does it say that the Eleusinian? Yeah, whatever. Oh, here it is. So Dio, Zarmaris, for some reason, wished to die. Because the caste of sages, he was on his account moved by his ambition, or in accordance with the traditional custom of the Indians, because of old age, because he wished to make a display for the benefit of Augustus and the Athenians. He was therefore initiated into the mysteries of the 2 goddesses, Demeter and Persephone, which were held out of season on account, they say, of Augustus, who was also an initiate, and he then threw himself into the fire. Cassius Dio.
Huh.
That's wild, man. I'm telling you, the Eleusinian mysteries were the real deal. They were the real deal. So, yeah, I hope that was interesting for some people.
Absolutely.
Anyways, thank you for that super chat, Yellow Psych. Usual is back. Thank you for that. Judean propaganda can be used to other anyone. 2,000 years later. So crazy.
That's true.
Absolutely.
That is very true. And yeah,
think about it. I mean, where does a lot of these a lot of problems come from? The idea of my religion said so I have to.
It's because this religion is still alive in some form, and they're still using those sources. So
that's where a lot of bigotry comes from.
If you want to know, so this is the thing: people reinterpret, and interpretation changes. But if we were still using Athenian literature today, like people believed in the Athenian deities and it was a practiced religion, there's xenophobia, like big time xenophobic stuff going on in Athenian literature. If you go look it up, they are a chosen race. Like there's a lot of specific, very chosenness about the Athenians. If we were using that, and then others tried to kind of reinterpret it over time, but others, fundamentalists, get back to what the meaning may have said and how it was very not what we want to practice ethically and morally or even politically, socially, etc. You could see why there's all this othering that keeps taking place, because even if the fangs off of a certain interpretation go away, there's still the us versus them mentality. We find this with the heresiologists. Look at how they are toward the Orthodox, or the heretics, if you will, the Gnostics, and the way that they categorize them, or you name it. Heathen gets used for those who are non-Christians, but it was goyim, and oftentimes that was actually meant derogatory. So you see that with Jews who would say prayers, and it was Rabbi Akiva during like the Bar Kokhba, just after Bar Kokhba, we have an account where one of his students said a prayer. It's written, says, God, I thank you I was not born a woman. Here's a guy praying, saying, thank you I was not born a woman, and I was not born a goy. So he's thanking God that he is not less than in their mind.
You and I have been to Israel.
Oh, yeah.
Remember what happened at the wall?
Yeah. Women have to go to the small section on the right. divided from the men. Men have like the whole under the bridge and
And you
all
can
of
go
that.
inside, and in this world they keep all the Torahs. You can go in there and read the books. There's this little tiny section, and it's outside. There's no Torahs over there. It's just a little section.
Well, I didn't see over there if there were, but I didn't.
No, there wasn't. I looked. I was looking.
Did you?
I was looking to see what was over there.
Well, I can tell you. Remember the
There was
women
some- there were
all
some
on the
tables.
fence?
There were some tables. That was it.
They're watching
For
their
them
kids.
It was for them to sit down and just chill. Yeah.
You remember the during their bar mitzvah, they're like all the women are on this side. They cannot come to the side
They're
with
all
their kids,
peeking over the fence and looking.
and they're all watching their kids.
What's going on over there? I'm like, this is.
Yeah.
That's
But
this
is a problem in many societies.
But this is the whole point of this discussion: is how do you balance out being critical, but also not being rude and othering, and like being anti-Semitic and xenophobic. That's all real stuff. Like that,
that's why you be careful. That's why you tiptoe. That's why when people go, quit being so like, no, dude, like grow a heart and try to be more empathetic and understand that most Jews, for example, are not even religious.
Right.
So yes, there are bigoted people in Jewish communities and in all sorts of communities, but that's why you try to be even-handed. And if all you do, and you know who I'm talking about, Neil, if all you do is focus on Jews and their practices only,
you might be anti-Semitic.
You might hate Jewish people or something. Like dude,
yeah,
come on, man.
Right, especially when it gets so conspiracy about it.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. That's a whole nother topic for another day. I'm definitely planning on tackling some of that stuff on my channel. Right. Because people can get way too extreme about it, and not even just anti-Semitism, the xenophobia too. Because there's millions of Muslims in the world who aren't fundamentalists.
Right.
For some reason, Islam gets the worst rap about, like, if someone's a Muslim, it's like, oh, are they going to be a terrorist? Like, they get that's a real thing too.
Right.
And a lot of people
exactly.
just grew up this way. My family, for generations, my whole family's been Muslim. And now I'm a Muslim too, like, because of my tradition. Like, how are you gonna knock that?
I had an experience because my dad was over there during the war after 9/11, and he came back with stories and came back with kind of bad perceptions of people in the Middle East from that kind of experience. And right. I remember I got reached out to by a mother. I didn't know these people. I mean, I put my information out there to help drug addicts who struggle with addiction. And this mom called me and I picked up. I don't know why and how she got my number. She somehow got my number. I pick up and she's just like the sweetest person I ever knew. Didn't know anything about the religion at all to begin with. She was begging me to help save her kid's life. And I'm like trying to help her find get her son to a rehab, this and that. And finally, she did not give up. She reminded me of my mom. Well, eventually I travel up to New York, 14 hours from North Carolina, pick up her son from their house, drove him to my house, gave him a room in the house, fed the guy. One night Ryan cooked pork and he was like, I'm so hungry, just give it to me. Cause he wasn't very religious. Okay. Right? Yeah, he didn't care. He's like, dude, this is good. But his family were Muslim and they treated me like I was their son. They loved me and so that it melted the hate or that kind of conception that kind of gets taught to you by your parents in a way from their own experiences. So sure, you go to a war zone, you're going to see ugly. And when you see ugly, you're going to perceive ugly. And you might even attribute the ugly to certain people. Not every one of that people is like that. It's like fundamentalist in Christianity. Not all Christians are fundamentalist, and not all Christians are bad or have this mean or very nasty view of Scripture. And we have to compartmentalize if we're going to live in a world where we're trying to bridge those gaps. But we do want to confront the ugly, though. Anyway, we rambled on that one, man. But that was a story I figured I'd tell you.
That was interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
It changed my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, exactly. It's experiences that can help do that. Super. Thank you, MNAG, for the super sticker. Very much appreciated. Also, as well, got a couple more, and then we can We've been doing this for a little while now, so we'll finish this thing up.
Okay.
Constellation Pegasus, thank you for the super chat. Compared to what you can make the Bible say, imagine the Hitler Youth brainwashing. Yeah, go get the Jews and fire up some people with an MG42. Go get some. Well, I will say this a lot, and it's not mentioned enough. There's this, for some reason, Hitler's always described as like he was bringing back Aryan paganism. Like, just read his own book. Read his own. He's the cat. He says, "I'm a devout Catholic." Just saying. I'm not saying that like all Catholics should be condemned for that, but I'm saying like, yeah, he was a Catholic. Like he was using biblical, and he even says it in Mein Kampf. He says, I'm doing Lord's work, and Jesus was the first person to confront the Jews. Like he's using religious, biblical stuff to argue his points.
Yeah,
he was critical of the Catholic Church too. He was talking about how why are they out in Africa helping the poor when they should be helping us?
Yeah,
it's just so dark, dude, that he was saying shit like that in Mein Kampf. Read Mein Kampf, you'll see it's all in there.
He had a couple different ideas, of course, I'm sure, but he did identify with Christians at least to some degree.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can't hold everyone accountable in one religion of the actions of one person.
Mm-hmm.
But it is fair to point out that that person is a part of this particular worldview. It's fair to point that out. Like, you can't just ignore it.
Yeah, but then the same thing, like the Christians that I hear will try to go, look at the atheist communist of the World War II and look at how many people died at the hand of people who didn't believe in God and things like that.
Right. But is it atheism that causes, is it atheism
right.
using as this, when you literally have passages saying Jesus was the first person to confront the Jews?
Yeah, but where's he getting this? I mean, obviously, you see Jesus like literally
Jesus
going out
in the Bible, so it's
right.
It's not like you don't see like Stalin being like the first atheist of all time. He was the first person to do that. Like he's not. There's no like they're not getting this from anywhere. It's just they just don't believe in God. It's not the same. I don't think there's a comparison there.
No, I think when you're reading John's gospel, for example, the condemnation of the Jews, children of Satan, the whole nine, if you're reading that and you really believe it, you're going to run into some problems. So I have that's another problem with people who think that the whole New Testament was just invented and created by the Jews to like somehow manipulate goyim in order to come in. It's like there's some big red flags that don't speak that way to me.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you for that super chat. Seeker says, thank you for the super chat. Do you guys see any parallels between Eastern Orthodox aerial toll houses and the Gnostic teaching on archons confronting the soul after death?
I could see where the seekers get in that idea, the idea that the soul after death has to go and travel a certain path, almost like the Gnostic teaching of having to go in and confront and have the angels' names memorized to get to the next level and stuff. Obviously they're different, but there might be some common theme of the traveling of the soul. I mean, look in ancient Osiris or ancient Egyptian mythology with having to take the journey on the river, right? You had to find the path to the underworld, like, and there's certain weighing stations of like your heart gets weighed and all this stuff if you're going to make it in. So maybe it's a kind of a common thing that people imagine having a journey to get to the destination. What do you think?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying they're connected. I'm saying maybe it's like a common thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point. I don't know. Ariel, what's the toll houses again?
Look, hold on. If you go to look here, share my screen. Look at mine. All right, so right here, right, aerial toll houses. It says during this journey, the soul passes through an aerial realm which is inhabited by wicked spirits. Ephesians 6:2. It says that he's the god of this world or the air. The soul encounters these demons at various points, referred to as toll houses, where the demon then attempt to accuse it of sin, and if possible, drag the soul into hell. A number of Eastern Orthodox saints, modern elders, and theologians have openly endorsed it, but some theologians and bishops have condemned it as heretical and Gnostic in origin. Aerial toll houses are part of the particular judgment. And the particular judgment, according to Christian eschatology, is the divine judgment that a departed person undergoes immediately after death in distinction to the general judgment of all people at the end of the world. Dude, the imagination is amazing. The most detailed account of aerial toll houses is found in the biography of Basil the Younger, found in the Lives of Saints for 26th of March. Anyway, toll houses. There are 20 toll houses, though the number is not dogmatic, and different sources listing varying numbers. On the first aerial toll house, the soul is questioned about the sins of the tongue. The remaining are in order. The toll houses of lies, slander, gluttony, laziness, theft, covetousness, usury, injustice, envy, pride, anger, resembling evil, murder, magic, lust, adultery, sodomy, heresy. Dude, I'm going to hell. I'm just kidding. Oh my gosh.
I just wanted to pull something up real quick.
Here, I'm gonna pop us back up. Anyway,
I wanted to show what I was talking about this this verse from my. Oh, let me just put this away. Thank you, Seeker, for that super chat. Can you see my screen at all?
Yeah.
Or is it small?
Yeah, I don't know why yours does this narrow.
It might be because of my screen. Anyways, it says right here. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. Okay, down here. The clearest indication of what this religious education can produce is the Jew himself. This is from Hitler's Mein Kampf. His life is only concerned with this world, and his inner spirit is as foreign to true Christianity as his nature was 2,000 years ago. The great founder of the new teaching himself, Jesus Christ. Jesus made no secret of his feelings toward the Jewish people, and even used the whip to drive his rival out of the Lord's temple. Even then, the Jewish religion was just a means to make money as a business. Oh my God. Dude, this is the person who rose up as a political leader, and he's writing this?
Mm-hmm.
What was going on in Germany, dude? How would that slide? Like, look at this. Even in the Bible, they're all about making money as a business. Christ was nailed to the cross for his intolerance of the Jews, while our present Christian political parties lower themselves in elections by begging for Jewish votes.
Wow.
So what I'm saying, they're using this idea.
It's us versus them mentality, and this is we see it in our politics today too. But yeah, it's a great tactic, especially if there is that mythology of the Aryan mythos in some way that might help people think, oh, I got to be true to my kind, my people. We've learned a lot since then too, even since that all took place.
Yeah. And then there's also this famous quote right here. I am now as before a Catholic and will always remain so. Now, it is fair that he might be just playing politics here, trying to keep the Catholics on his side. Because he was if you actually read Mein Kampf, he's very critical of the Catholics.
Right.
Saying that they're lowering themselves for the Jews. And why are they in Africa worrying about Africa? They should be worrying about us. Like shit like that. And so, anyways, I just wanted to bring that up. It's interesting because people use religion as a weapon.
Yeah.
He was definitely doing that. So
it's easy to do it. I mean, it's very easy to do it.
Let's see. I think there's one more left.
No, you got Bill here.
Oh, you're looking at him before I am.
Oh yeah, but I'm so used to knowing how to navigate this thing.
Yeah.
Bill, thank you, Bill. Bill says Jews never force people to convert in mass. That's true. And that is, I mean, I can't say that there weren't. I would just go with the yes, that's true, because I'm not saying there weren't wars that happened, obviously, but their religion was their religion, right? So they're not out here enforcing others to do it, especially not a sword, right?
Constantine Pegasus is a good question. You were just talking about this.
Yeah. So what segregation at the wall? I'm stumped at this. So yeah, there's the women go off to the right. If you're facing the temple, the wall, the Welling Wall, which the Temple Mount is on top of that, where it would have been, where the temple would have stood. This is actually the quarters where the Muslims control. the Jewish Welling walls down below, and they have a little tiny wall that you can peek your head over for the women. But on that side over the right, if we're facing my bookshelf, the women are over here, and like imagine this little category from this red book right here over. That's the women's section.
Yeah.
The men's section goes like way over. Yeah, you probably have an image to show.
Well, no, this is an article from 2016 because so can you see my mouse right now?
Yeah.
There's where the wall's divided. There's a right here is where the walls. This is the divider. The women's is on the other side of this.
No. That's that walkway up to where they search.
Oh no, it's right here.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
okay, there it is. You're right. See, that's where the chairs are. So this is the women's side right here. The men's side is over here. But back here, they made a little section where men and women can be together in.
Oh, okay.
Just in one little side. But that just happened in 2016.
Okay. I didn't even notice anybody in that section.
No, there was no one there. Because
when we went there, it was like
so pointless.
My wife was super uncomfortable.
Not at the wall. It's not at the wall. It's behind. It's way. Look how far back they are.
Yeah, they're like, we got a well from a distance.
And that's why I wanted to show this article is because like there's two sides, men's side over here, the big one, and the women's side over here, the small one.
Yeah.
And there's this little section where they're allowed to be together. I don't know.
Ryan didn't like that because she wants to experience things with me.
Yeah.
And she wasn't able to go down to the wall with me. And I went down a few times and she vocalized that. I still have that recording somewhere. So at some point I'll probably
put
that up.
Keep that up. Yeah.
Thank you, Constellation.
So yeah, thank you for that. And then I think we have, let's see what we got. One more, right? Something like that. Or is that it?
You got one right here. Bill. Thank you, Bill.
Again. Is that the same Bill?
I believe so.
If not, thank you for another super sticker. I appreciate it.
Reformed, and this is what they said: Reformed Jews don't segregate the sexes, but most U.S. masjids do. And this is the thing about Reformed Jews that I love. In fact, this is why when I go and interview with Justin Sledge, and you do too, he calls out the nonsense in his own community.
Yeah,
and that's a powerful thing. It's good to have people who do that. So. You do have one more.
Oh, by the way, about Justin Sledge, what he's doing is so important because he's bringing you scholarly information about religions, and he's giving you the tools to build your own religious mindset, religious path. He's giving you the tools to like decide how to do religion in a ancient. Like the real way that the ancients were doing, like he's giving you the real knowledge of this stuff, but he's also saying like, look, there's different ways to do this stuff. Like here's what these people thought. Here's what these people thought. Here's what the Gnostics thought. Here's the medieval people in medieval times did this. You're just getting so much knowledge from him that he's opening things up. So it's not just fundamentalism or atheism anymore.
Right.
There's things in between now. That's why I love Justin. That's why I love his channel.
It needs to be. I think he's setting a good example. Really good example.
Exactly.
Seeker 206. Thank you for answering, good sirs.
Yes, thank you for that. And that's it. That's the last super chat. Yeah, thank you, Mojo. Derek, MythVision podcast. Links in the description. Last thing I want to say is that the link is in the description for the mimesis, and hope you guys check that out.
Please do. I want to hear people's thoughts about it. I think that you're going to watch it and at least become convinced that some of the examples are just too much to not think something's going on. That's my thoughts. And Dr. Matthew Munger, who I interviewed earlier today, he said, I am a believer in it. Like he's convinced that Dennis is right. Not all of Dennis's examples, but he is sold that Dennis is onto something for sure.
Yeah, especially a good chunk of them. But anyways, that's all for today. And you have just attained true gnosis.